I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, spilling all this out on some weird forum, but honestly I don't know if I have anyone else to tell. Maybe it's just relief I need, getting this off my chest. I always believed in honesty, loyalty, the kind of quiet trust that sustains years of marriage. Turns out I was pretty damn naive. My wife Lisa and I met 5 years ago. We clicked instantly, best friends, then lovers, then engaged. She was my whole world, confident and bright, the kind of woman everyone admired. And I won't lie, I thought I knew everything about her. Until a month ago when I started feeling that gnawing sense that something was wrong. I'd catch her glancing at her phone more than usual, hiding texts when I entered the room. Small things, maybe, but enough to prick at me. One night I was working late and decided to check her emails. Nothing suspicious there, just work stuff, a few personal messages. But then I remembered her mentioning a meeting last month with her boss, Mark. Something about a new project, she said. I never paid much attention, honestly, but my stomach twisted when I realized. I didn't remember seeing her email confirmation for that meeting. It was odd, so I did what I shouldn't have. I found her phone, pretending to be casual, and scrolled through her messages. At first I found nothing, just her usual chatter with friends, some work stuff. But then I saw a message from Mark, dated last month, right before she said she was out of town for a conference. It was a text, short but loaded. Can't wait to see you tonight. This means everything to me. My heart pounded. I felt like someone had just punched me in the gut. I read that message 3 times, trying to convince myself this was a mistake. But the way she responded, me too, I've never felt this way. It wasn't just a professional exchange, it was more. And the way her fingers had typed those words, the tone, the intimacy, they couldn't be fake. I looked at her phone, cold sweat on my palms, and my mind went blank. I didn't sleep that night. Just lay there staring at the ceiling, feeling my world shatter in slow motion. The next morning I confronted her. She was still asleep, her face peaceful, unaware of how much I just uncovered. I gently shook her shoulder. Lisa, we need to talk, I said, my voice gravelly, almost cracked. She opened her eyes, blinking at me. What's wrong? I saw your messages, I said, voice trembling. From Mark last month, right before we got engaged. Did you sleep with him? Her face changed, pale, then defensive. It meant nothing, I swear. It was a mistake, just a stupid thing, a moment of weakness. I never wanted you to find out like this. I clenched my fists. It meant nothing, that's what you say. After all the plans we made, the future I thought we were building, you're telling me it was just a mistake. She looked down, her hands trembling. I was confused, I was scared, I didn't know how to tell you. I swear it was one night and it wasn't supposed to happen again. Please, I love you, I never stopped loving you. That day I felt like I was drowning. Every second that passed, my stomach twisted tighter. I kept replaying her words, asterisk, it meant nothing. Yeah, right, that's what everyone says after cheating, isn't it? But I knew better now. Something was broken, I just didn't know how badly until then. That's when the idea started to take shape. I didn't want to be the guy who forgave and forgot. I needed something more. Something that would teach her a lesson, make her understand just how much she'd hurt me. I wasn't feeling revenge then, I was just numb, trying to find my footing. But the plan slowly formed in my mind like a crack spreading across a mirror. I'll stop here for now. Do you want me to go on? After that morning, everything between us changed. I couldn't look at her the same way. Her excuses, her pleas, they all sounded hollow now. I felt like I was walking around with a knot in my stomach that only tightened with each passing hour. The trust, the fragile fabric that held us together, had been shredded in that single moment of betrayal. I couldn't sleep that night either. I kept replaying everything, analyzing every detail of her face, her words, her tone. The more I thought about it, the clearer it became that I needed to do something. Not just to make her regret, but to make her understand the depth of what she'd done. I didn't want her to get away with it just like that. I wanted her to feel what I felt, humiliated, betrayed, furious. The first step was gathering evidence. I started looking through her emails, her social media accounts. I wanted to catch her in a lie if she was going to deny it again. I knew I couldn't confront her blindly. No, I needed proof. Something undeniable. I remember one night, I found her laptop open on the dining table. She'd been careless. Her password was still saved. I felt a rush of adrenaline as I logged in and scrolled through her browser history. That's when I saw the strange sites she'd been visiting, secretive password-protected folders she'd hidden. It was clear she'd been hiding something from me, but I needed more. I went into her email archives and found the messages with Mark. They weren't just flirty, they'd crossed the line into something physical. I could tell by the tone and the way they exchanged photos. There was one in particular, her leaning against a wall, her lipstick smudged, a little smile on her face. I saw it, felt my blood turn cold. I printed out all the evidence I could find. It was like holding a trophy of her betrayal, and it made my stomach churn just looking at it. That night I went to bed with the evidence tucked away in my mind and the printed pages in my bag. I knew I couldn't wait any longer. I had to confront her, but I wanted her to know I was serious. I wanted her to understand the damage she'd done. The next morning I called her into the living room. She looked nervous, fidgeting with her hands. When she saw the evidence I laid out on the table, those printouts, the screenshots, her face went pale. She didn't speak right away. Her eyes flicked from the papers to my face, searching for some kind of mercy. "You lied," I said quietly. "All those times you said it was just a mistake, that it meant nothing. I found the messages, Lisa. I saw the photos. You cheated on me with your boss and you think you can just brush it off." She swallowed hard and looked away. "I was stupid," she whispered. "It was a moment of weakness. I didn't mean for it to become thing. Please just forget it." I felt rage bubble up hot and sharp. "Forget it? You expect me to just forget the fact that you slept with another man, then lied to my face about it? Do you even realize how much you've hurt me?" Her eyes filled with tears. "I swear I love you, it's just—" "No," I cut her off. "You don't get to say that now. You made your choice and I've had enough. I want out now." She tried to reach for my hand, but I pulled back. "Don't," I said coldly. "You're not the woman I thought I married. You're nothing but a liar, a cheat." I left the room for a moment to clear my head. I knew I couldn't just walk away and pretend it didn't happen. I had to plan my next move, something that would hit her where it hurt, but also serve as my final lesson. I spent the rest of the day devising my revenge, something strategic. I wasn't going to do anything reckless, but I knew I needed to make her realize that betrayal comes with a price. I would tell her I was leaving, but I'd also make sure she knew I was aware of everything. I wanted her to feel exposed, vulnerable. It was time she understood that her actions had consequences. I'd keep her guessing, wait for the right moment to strike back with something she wouldn't see coming. "I'll stop here for now. Do you want me to go on?" Over the next few days, I kept everything close to the chest. My mind was a whirlwind of anger, planning, and a strange sense of clarity I hadn't experienced before. I knew I couldn't just walk away quietly, not with her betrayal still fresh, and not without making her feel the full weight of what she'd done. I needed a plan that would hit her hard but wouldn't cross any lines I'd regret later. I started by gathering everything I needed to execute my revenge. I wanted her to feel exposed, but I also wanted to control the situation, to make her realize she'd underestimated me. I knew she'd try to deny, lie, or manipulate her way out of it, so I had to be prepared. One thing I did was create an anonymous email account. Nothing fancy, just enough to send her a message that would shake her up. I wrote a simple note, nothing overtly hostile, just enough to make her wonder. "I know what you did. Don't bother denying it. You're not getting away with this." I sent it to her work email, knowing she'd check it eventually. I wanted her to realize I was watching, even if she didn't know how, but that wasn't enough. I also decided to leave her a tangible reminder. I took the printed photos and hid them in her purse, carefully, so she wouldn't notice until she was out and about. I knew she'd find them eventually, and when she did, the shock would hit her like a ton of bricks. Meanwhile, I started leaking small hints to her friends, mutual acquaintances, even her sister. Nothing direct, just enough to make her paranoid, to make her realize that her secret was out, at least in part. I didn't want to blow everything open immediately. I wanted her to feel the pressure mounting, the sense that her carefully constructed lie was crumbling. The day I decided to confront her again, I kept my tone calm but firm. I wanted her to know. Had her cornered. I called her into the living room again. Her face looked tense, her eyes darting. She knew something was coming, but she probably didn't expect it to be so calculated. "I got your message," I told her, watching her carefully. The one you sent to your work email. I think you know what I'm talking about." Her eyes widened. "I don't know what you mean." "Oh, come on," I said, voice steady. "You think I didn't see the photos in your purse, the ones you left for yourself to find? You're damn lucky I'm not the kind of guy who throws punches, but trust me, I'm just getting started." Her face drained of color. "You're blackmailing me." "No," I replied bluntly. "I'm just making sure you understand that secrets have a way of coming out, and you've got a lot of explaining to do." She sank onto the couch, trembling. "Please, I didn't mean for it to go this far. I was stupid, I swear. Stupid. You think that excuses cheating, lying, betraying everything we had?" Her voice cracked. "I love you. I want us to work through this. Just give me a chance." I shook my head, cold fury boiling inside. "You want a chance, fine, but I'm done pretending I don't see what you did. I want you to understand that the damage is done and you can't just brush it under the rug. I'm leaving, but I'll be back tomorrow. I want you to think about what you've lost and what you're about to lose." She looked like she wanted to crawl into a hole. I knew I had her right where I wanted, and it felt strangely empowering, even as my stomach still clenched with anger. That night I went to a bar alone. I didn't drink much, just enough to numb the ache, but I kept a close eye on my phone, waiting for her to call or text. When she finally did, it was a pleading voice, crying, begging for mercy. "I love you," she said. "Please don't do this. I'll do anything, just talk to me." I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her desperation. I decided to give her one more chance to come clean, to really own her mistake. But this time, I was going to make sure she understood that in our world, betrayal came with consequences. I told her I'd be back the next day, but I wasn't coming home. I needed to step back, evaluate everything. I hung up, feeling a strange mixture of relief and rage. I'd set my trap. She could deny all she wanted, but I knew I had everything I needed now. She was not getting away with this. The plan was in motion. I could almost taste the revenge already. I just had to wait for her to realize she'd crossed a line she couldn't undo. "Do you want me to continue?" The next day, I woke up with a strange mix of anticipation and cold determination. I knew she'd try to play innocent or beg for forgiveness, but I wasn't interested in that anymore. This wasn't about making her feel guilty. Well, maybe a little. But it was about making sure she understood the gravity of her betrayal. I wanted her to remember that this wasn't just a moment of weakness. It was a breach that had shattered whatever trust we had left. I left her apartment early, knowing she'd be lying in bed, waiting for me to come back. Instead, I headed straight to the bank and withdrew a sizable amount of cash. I wanted to make sure I had enough funds to make this final act. I also stopped by a tailor and picked up a nice, plain envelope of her belongings, including her keys, her phone, and anything that could tie her directly to the betrayal. I'd make her think I was cutting all ties, just as I knew she'd be expecting. When I returned, her apartment was eerily quiet. I could hear her moving around somewhere inside, probably trying to figure out what was happening. I knocked on the door and she answered almost instantly, eyes red and puffy. She looked at me like I was a stranger, or maybe like she was waiting for the hammer to fall. "Here," I said, holding out the envelope with her keys and phone. "Your stuff. I want you to think about everything while you're gone." Her voice was shaky. "You're really doing this?" "Yeah," I said, voice flat. "You lied, you cheated, and you think you can just say sorry and everything's fine. Well, it's not. So I'm giving you a little space to think about what you've lost, what you threw away." She reached out, trembling, trying to grab the envelope. I stepped back. "No, you can keep your things for now. I want you to feel the weight of this, Lisa. You betrayed me, and I'm not going to pretend it's okay, not anymore." Her eyes welled up. "Please don't do this. I didn't mean for it to happen." "You didn't mean for it to happen." I cut her off sharply. "That makes it better. That makes it okay." She looked down, biting her lip. I was scared. "I didn't know how to tell you, I swear." "Save it," I snapped. "You don't get to explain your way out of this. I saw what I saw, the photos, the messages. You want to keep lying to yourself. Go ahead, but I'm done. I'll be back to get the rest of my things, and I want you gone." I turned to leave, but before I did, I looked back at her. "One more thing, don't bother contacting me. I'll be doing the same. You've lost me, Lisa, and honestly, I don't think I want you back. Not ever." I didn't wait for her response. I just walked out, feeling a strange sense of relief mixed with a bitter taste of betrayal. That was the last time I saw her standing in her apartment, clutching her own things. I knew I'd made my choice. I was done with the lies, the betrayal, and the fake apologies. One way or another, she was going to learn that betrayal has a price. As I drove away, I felt the weight lifting from my shoulders. But I also wondered, how much damage had I really done? Would she come back begging for forgiveness? Or had I finally cut the cord for good? I wasn't sure yet. All I knew was that I'd done what I needed to do, and now I'd see what was left of us when the dust settled. Next, I planned my final move. It was time to really make her understand the cost of her betrayal without crossing any lines I'd regret. The revenge was coming, and it would be precise. I'll stop here. Want me to continue? The days that followed were a blur of quiet, almost tense calm. I kept my distance, avoided her calls, her messages. Honestly, I wanted her to feel that emptiness, that gnawing sense that she'd lost the only person who ever truly mattered. I was determined to make her see what her betrayal cost, not just me, but everything we'd built. I spent that time carefully planning. Revenge, I realized, had to be calculated, subtle, but deliberate. I didn't want to come across as reckless or impulsive. Besides, I still had my dignity, even if I felt broken inside. I thought about her reaction, what she'd be least expecting. That's when I hit upon the idea. I knew her boss, Mark, wouldn't take her betrayal lightly either. I decided to leverage that. I planted tiny, almost invisible clues that would connect him to her scandal, nothing outright, but enough to stir suspicion and worry. I started by calling his office and leaving a vague message about getting some papers that I knew he'd want to see. I left his assistant a message from a blocked number, hinting at secrets that could ruin him professionally. At the same time, I reached out to a few of her friends, mutual acquaintances who didn't know the full story. I told them I'd uncovered some things about Lisa, enough to make them question her integrity. I didn't reveal everything, just enough to make her reputation at least a little shaky. I knew her social circles, and I knew how gossip spread, slow and inevitable. One evening, I made sure to be near her apartment. I wanted to see her reaction when she realized her secret was leaking out. I saw her packing, anxious, checking her phone every few minutes. When she finally glanced at her screen and saw the messages from her friends, her face went pale. Her eyes darted wildly and she started dialing frantic numbers. I stayed hidden, watching her scramble. That was the moment I realized I'd done enough to make her feel hunted, vulnerable, and exposed. But I wasn't finished. My goal was to give her a taste of the chaos she'd caused. I moved into action with a quiet precision. I sent her an anonymous message. "You're not as clever as you thought. Your secrets are out and they're about to hit hard." It was enough to make her sweat, to make her second-guess every move. I knew she'd be looking for the source, but I kept it just vague enough. Then I arranged for her to find something that would shatter her sense of control. I left a USB drive in her mailbox disguised as a small gift. Inside were copies of the messages, photos, and a simple note. "You're not safe anymore." Watching her discover it was almost satisfying, her hands trembling, her eyes wide as she stared at the files. That evening she called me crying. Her voice was shaky, pleading for answers. I didn't pick up. I let her stew in her panic. Instead, I left her one last message. "You made your choices. You're going to have to live with the consequences." Then I blocked her number. The game was on and she was in my trap. I knew she'd try to deny, to lie her way out of it, but she couldn't escape the truth anymore. Her reputation was crumbling, her life unraveling. I'd laid the groundwork for her downfall, and I felt that strange, cold satisfaction I hadn't experienced before. This revenge wasn't about revenge at all. It was about justice, about making her realize she'd crossed a line she could never uncross. I spent the rest of that night feeling a strange mixture of relief and emptiness. I'd made her pay, but at what cost? Still, I couldn't pretend I didn't feel a rush of satisfaction knowing she was losing control just as I had lost mine. It was poetic, it was justified. Next, I would finalize everything, get my things, file the papers, and officially walk away. The final act of justice was near, but I was curious. What would she do next? Would she fight back, or accept her downfall? Either way, I was ready. Want me to keep going with the last part? The day I decided to cut everything off finally arrived. I woke up early, my mind clear for the first time in weeks. I knew what I had to do. I had to make it official, concrete, final. No more guessing, no more games. This was the end of the line, and I was going to walk away with the satisfaction of knowing she'd be left with nothing but the damage she'd caused herself. I got dressed carefully, choosing a simple, unassuming outfit. I wanted her to see that I wasn't angry anymore, just resolved. I took the folder where I'd kept all the evidence, the printed photos, the messages, everything I'd uncovered. I grabbed the envelope of her belongings, her keys, her phone. The weight of it felt like a lead ball in my pocket. She was waiting at her door when I got there. Her face was pale, eyes red-rimmed like she'd been crying all night. Her hands trembled as she looked at me, hope flickering in her eyes, hope that I'd somehow change my mind. I didn't give her that satisfaction. "I'm done," I said simply. "I came to give you your stuff and then I'm leaving for good." Her voice broke. "Please just wait. Just listen to me." "No," I interrupted. "There's nothing left to say." I stepped inside, carefully placing her belongings on the floor. "You lied, you cheated, you betrayed everything we had. I don't want to hear your excuses. You made your choice, Lisa. Now I'm making mine." I handed her the envelope with her keys and phone. "Take your things. I want you out of my life. And don't try to contact me again. Not ever." My voice was steady now, devoid of the rage that had simmered for so long. She looked at me, eyes filled with tears. "You're really leaving?" "Yes," I said softly but firmly. "This is over. I hope someday you realize what you lost, because I sure as hell do." She reached out, desperate, but I stepped back. I didn't want to touch her, not anymore. I turned toward the door and walked out, feeling the cold air hit my face as I stepped outside. The world was quiet, but inside my mind was loud with relief, anger, and a strange sense of liberation. Driving away, I watched her standing in that doorway, helpless. I knew she'd try to reach me, to plead, to explain. But I was done listening. I'd already heard enough lies. The betrayal had been deep, but so was my resolve. I was finally free. As I drove into the distance, I felt the weight of the past lift from my shoulders. I'd taken control of my life again, set the record straight, and reclaimed my dignity. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew one thing. I was better off without her. And I'd never let someone betray me like that again. The key in my hand, the official papers signed, and my new beginning on the horizon. That's how I closed that chapter of my life. Because sometimes the only way to truly move on is to cut the dead weight for good. And that's exactly what I did. The lesson: trust is fragile and betrayal costs more than you think. When it's broken, sometimes the only way to heal is to walk away completely.